Welcome to the Frugalpreneur podcast. I am your host, Sarah St. John, and my guest today is a proven thought leader in digital marketing, generating over $3 million in annual revenue growth through highly effective content creation combined with superior strategy development. He is the CEO of Socialistics. Welcome to the show, Jason Yormark.
Great, thank you for having me.
Can you give us a little bit of your history and background?
I've been kind of a lifelong marketer. My first real major career accomplishment was getting hired at Microsoft. I spent about 6 or 7 years at Microsoft and working for the Microsoft advertising group. Got really involved in social media with Microsoft advertising. Then I launched social for the last physical edition of Office for Mac. Spent another year with the Office product and then kind of parlayed that into running some social media teams at a couple different agencies. Always wanted to do my own thing. About 3 years ago, I launched Socialistics, a social media agency, and we've taken off ever since. It's been an incredible run, and we continue to grow our brand and live our core values and help businesses basically navigate social media in measurable ways that actually help grow their businesses.
So do you help with Facebook ads, or really any social media platform, the ads, or?
It's end to end. I mean, it's basically most clients have us manage everything across the board, creating their content, managing their channels and communities, running all of their advertising on social media, running influencer campaigns, sometimes some social selling campaigns. Every business is a little bit different, but ultimately it comes down to what are their goals and objectives, what is the budget that they have to work with, and we put together a strategy and execute on that for them.
And what exactly is influencer marketing? Is that where you get a famous person to promote your thing?
It depends on how you define fame, I guess. I mean, typically for us, the influencers that we work with are not everyday names for most people. They're folks that are kind of niche based. They have a following of 100,000, sometimes up to 1 million. They've got an audience that's very specific in a particular area. It could be fitness, it could be sports, it can be auto, it just a variety of different things. It just comes down to, finding what we call micro influencers who have a sizable audience. They're not the Kardashians of the world. They're approachable, they're affordable for businesses, but more importantly, they have audiences that are relevant to our clients. And then we partner with them to basically create authentic content and opportunities to have those influencers share these brands, products and services through their channels authentically, identifying those folks and facilitating the relationship so that it can be mutually beneficial for both sides.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I've seen ads before. Well, I guess it's like a photo and they might be wearing a watch or whatever, and they'll say promoted post or something like that.
Yeah. Oftentimes if influencers are doing it correctly, they're very transparent about when they are putting out content that is designed to promote a product. We really try to make sure that it's authentic, though. There's a lot of influencers that just all they care about is making money. They'll hawk any kind of product, regardless of whether it's something that they would actually use or if it's actually something that would be of value to their audience. So we try to find folks that actually are going to find an interest in the product authentically, and it's something that they would actually use and then also support, and that it actually relates to their audience. Like there's a high probability that the folks that they're connected to would be interested in it as well. So we really work hard to make sure that everything through and through is as authentic as it can be, because anything beyond that is really just transactional and doesn't really move the needle very significantly over time.
And then as far as social selling, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that's basically, it's 9 times out of 10, it's leveraging LinkedIn to basically make one-to-one connections with folks. Basically, you identify who's the target type of person that you're trying to reach, what's their role, what company are they with, where are they at regionally, all the things that LinkedIn basically allows you to do. And then you build targeted lists of folks to reach out to that relate to, again, what you do. It's all about authenticity and value. You're making sure that our clients have something that's of interest, that's likely to resonate with these folks, and then helping them with message funnels that basically create connection requests or in-mails with folks. It's a volume-based game, so a lot of people admittedly ignore a lot of that messaging. It can get pretty noisy, but if it's really targeted, if there's value there, then it works. And the fact of the matter is, if you're sending out quite a bit of messaging, if 2 or 3% of folks respond, then it's worth it. So a lot of folks frown upon that sort of thing, cold outreach. Everybody does it, though. It's really about making sure that the folks that you're trying to connect with are vetted. They're folks that have a high probability of being interested in what you have to offer, and that you're providing some sort of value. You're not just trying to sell to people. You're trying to introduce valuable tools or content that might be of interest to them to kind of just create touch points and relationships with folks that over time can turn into potential clients or customers.
Yeah, I was speaking with someone the other day who just launched a podcast production agency, which is actually what I do. He was saying that that he went from 0 to 6 figures in 3 months, just primarily from LinkedIn cold outreach.
Yeah, it's a grind. I mean, it's a lot of time, and you got to know what you're doing. Again, that's why agencies like ours exist, because most businesses don't have the resources or the experience to do those sorts of things. So as long as you're producing results for most businesses, it makes a lot of sense. It's never just, there's not one magic pill to market yourself effectively. It really just comes down to doing things the right way and doing them well, and that takes time and expertise that typically many businesses don't have in-house, and that's why marketing agencies exist. I would argue too many of them, but there's plenty of good ones as well. So
do you have any tips for LinkedIn outreach, or really any outreach, cold outreach?
it depends on, well, the first thing is you, as a business, you better have something that people want or need, or is interesting or differentiates. If you're just a Me Too product or service, if there's really nothing about what you do or offer that stands out, then it's not going to work. That's number one. Number two is you really need to know who it is that you're trying to reach. You need to be really methodical about the demographics of the folks that you're trying to get in front of. What are their titles? What type of companies are they at? It could be interest-based targeting. Really just getting really locked in on that. And then you really have to have really effective messaging. It needs to be really concise. It really needs to be on point. It's not easy to do. Great writing is not, it's a very valuable commodity. Not everybody can do it. So you really need to make sure that your messaging is on point, from your subject lines to the content that's actually in your messaging. So it's really the sum of all of those things working together in harmony that's going to really increase the probability of folks responding to you, and then you being able to make connection threads with folks that turn into some sort of meaningful relationship for your business. So I always tell clients, look, we can take on most of the heavy lifting, but ultimately you have to be prepared to take those relationships to the next level. Our job is to make those connections. It's your job when they raise their hand and they're like, hey, I'm interested in learning more. You got to take it from there. You got to be ready to follow up and nurture those relationships. So it's a kind of a combination of all of those sorts of things. It's not just one thing that's going to make it happen. I think you have to do all of those things really well in order for it to be a scalable marketing strategy that actually is worth your time and investment to make it work.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what about Facebook ads? Do you have any recommendations or suggestions on how to actually get people to click on those?
There's a lot of similarities across the board when it comes to social. Having an interesting product certainly starts there. And then, having realistic goals and objectives and budget. It really depends on what does success look like to you as a business. That's going to kind of determine what a realistic budget is. I think a lot of businesses aren't realistic about that sort of thing. They want a really large amount of results, but they have a couple $100s to spend, and it's just not going to happen. So you got to be realistic about what your budget's going to be able to do for you. The big thing is patience. You have to be able to understand that it's going to take at minimum 1 to 3 months of running Facebook ads to get a sense of what works and what doesn't. You got to test a lot of things. You got to test creative. You got to test the targeting that you're putting in place. You got to put those things out in the world and see which ones people respond to and what things don't, and then optimize those things. And then over time, you're able to figure out what is the formula for success for you. And then you can zero in and optimize your budget and really start to get to a point where you have some predictability around, if I spend X amount of dollars, I can expect Y results. But there's definitely a learning phase involved in figuring out what that looks like. I would say most businesses are not equipped to run advertising themselves. Now, if you're just talking about taking a few posts and boosting them, yeah, that's a relatively easy lift. But the level of sophistication involved in really running successful paid social media campaigns, it requires somebody that knows what they're doing and has experience with that. Otherwise, if you're going to try and figure it out on your own, you're just going to get frustrated. It's going to take time for you to get there. It's going to end up costing you as much, if not more. And that's the value of working with a professional, whether it's an agency or a consultant, is going to help you get there more quickly, because you're working with folks that have done that and are going to save you a ton of time when it comes to getting things optimized as quickly as possible. So, and the last thing I would say is, if you're a small business, ultimately, if you're not spending a couple $1,000s on your ads, then you're probably not going to see a lot of movement. Now, the exception is if you're like a small mom and pop retail shop in the corner and your business equates to a particular zip code, then you can probably get away with boosting some posts and doing some of the self-managed stuff. But if you're a business looking to sell products and services over like the entire country or things of that nature, chances are you're going to need somebody to kind of help you navigate that.
Okay. Yeah, because I've run a few ads on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn, which LinkedIn ads are really expensive in comparison. I get frustrated. It's so, you have to learn how each different platform operates, and it gets frustrating. So I've been thinking about getting a social media agency at some point. Out of curiosity, how do you do your pricing?
Yeah, so agencies are different. We've got a great resource on our website that I'll share with the audience, basically titled, How Much Does Social Media Cost? And then it breaks down what you can expect in terms of what you would pay an agency or the different types of sized agencies. And then we have a social media ad budget calculator that's free for folks where you can put in your goals and objectives and it'll give you a budget recommendation. So you can check that out on our website. But ultimately, it really comes down to there's really three buckets when you think about agencies, in my opinion. There's your individual, really small startup agency and or freelance contractor just starting out. And then you have the middle, which is where we live, kind of a boutique agency. They've been doing it for a couple years, maybe 5 to 15 people roughly. So they're still small and nimble, not huge. And then the third bucket is like your big major agencies, like the ones that work with Coke or Pepsi or Taco Bell, like really big brands. Now, obviously, I'm simplifying that a little bit for the purpose of this conversation and for people just trying to get a sense of things. I'm sure there's probably 5 buckets, but ultimately, if you narrow it down, 3 buckets. If you're like that freelance contractor, just starting out agency, you're probably looking at having to spend at minimum $1,500 to $2,500 a month. Hard costs for them to do work for you. That's probably the entry point. The benefits, a little less expensive. They're young and hungry. So they're probably going to go above and beyond. They're probably working to build out their portfolio, so they're willing to do more for less in that stage. Some of the disadvantages, it's probably only going to be one person or a really small team. You're probably paying less for something. Like they're going to want to charge more for that eventually, so that relationship probably won't be long lasting. And they're probably not as experienced as some of the other groups. Now, if you move up the scale to say maybe that second, but that boutique agency, kind of where we live, you're probably looking at more of like $3,000 to $5,000 a month. You're getting a team at that point, probably. You're getting like an account manager and then 1 to 2 folks that are doing tactical for you. The benefits are, again, they're still young and hungry. They're a little bit more experienced. They've been doing it a little bit longer, so their processes are in place. You're probably going to see more significant results more quickly. Disadvantages, I would say, obviously a little bit more expensive. And outside of that, there's probably not really any disadvantages unless you're like a growing huge brand and you're spending 6 figures on ads. Once you kind of get into that realm, then you're talking about the much bigger agencies where they're probably charging you $10,000 or more a month. They're probably not talking to anybody if you're not spending $10,000 a month. So there's a place for everybody. It just depends on where you're at as a business and having realistic expectations. We started out in that first bucket, and over the course of the past 3 years, we've grown into that boutique agency space. So I that's where I always recommend most businesses try to make things work, because I think that that's the sweet spot. But there's a place for every client and every agency, depending on where they're at budget-wise. And you can grow. Obviously, you can start small, and then over time, it makes sense. I mean, agencies, it's pretty rare for clients to stay with agencies forever. So, and we kind of go into with that expectation. We offer month-to-month terms, and we realize sometimes a client might outgrow us or vice versa. It happens. So that's the benefit of working with an agency, is that it gives you, as a business owner, some flexibility to go in and out of relationships as your business shifts over time. So that's kind of a high-level overview.
That's kind of what I was anticipating. And because I just launched a podcast production agency, and I'm just wondering, what tips do you have for any sort of agency, I guess any kind of service agency, when they're getting started, maybe things you learned?
Oh, for sure. I'm writing a book called The Anti-Agency, How I Built a $1 Million Business Differently. And the whole book is about basically the question that you asked, like, what have I learned? What are the things that we did that helped us be successful? There's a couple things that just come top of mind. Number one is get to a point where you can say no. You don't want to say yes to everything. Now, obviously, when you're just starting out, you're hungry, you kind of get what you can get. So it's a little naive to think that you're not going to be a little bit more flexible about the type of business, but you want to get to a point where you're not taking everything. You've got to value your time. You don't want to sway too far from what you charge and what you're worth. You don't want to take on clients that aren't a good fit for you. Either maybe there isn't a good professional chemistry there, maybe their product is just kind of like and you're just like, great marketing doesn't fix bad products, but you just want to get to a point where you can say no and you can be selective about who you work with. So that's the biggest thing. The other big thing that for me, look, I started my business when I was in my mid to low 40s. So everybody's different in terms of when they take that leap. For me, that was the right timing for me, personally and professionally. And I think the biggest thing that I learned about why did it work this time? Like, why did it take off? The biggest biggest thing is fear. I got over my fear of that regular paycheck, right? The regular paycheck and your benefits, the comfort and the stability that comes with a regular 9-to-5 job. I had kids, I had things to take care of. There's that stability. A lot of people crave that. They want some predictability in their life when it comes to that sort of thing. And as a marketer, I was always jumping to different jobs, whether I was being laid off or whether I was taking, it's just, I never had that stability and predictability. I was like, what's wrong with me? And I finally realized, kind of when I looked at marketing professionals, every marketer jumps all over the place, whether by choice or not. That's just the nature of marketing. It's a flavor of the month sort of thing. Marketers are changing jobs. Companies want to go in different directions. So as soon as I got okay with that, I basically came to the realization that the stability that I was always looking for was right in front of me all along, which was doing my own thing. Control my own fate. I don't have to worry about other people and other things controlling. I'm in charge. My fate is in my own hands. When I realized that stability that I was craving my entire life was right in front of me, the fear kind of melted away. And the minute that happened, the business took off because I just felt like my handcuffs were off and I just went for it 100%. And I didn't feel like I had this fear crutch holding me back, constantly like, oh, maybe I should look for jobs too while I'm doing this just in case. It's like, nope. I'm all in. I'm going 100% in. This is what I was meant to do. The minute that mindset took over, that's when my business took off. So to me, that's the biggest thing for anybody that's thinking about starting an agency or starting a business. You're not ready unless you're willing to walk away from all that other stuff. You got to be 100% committed, 100% confident, and not even looking back. When you're able to do that, then you're ready. And if you've got a good product or service, you got a good head on your shoulders, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah, those are good points. I think so many people are afraid of leaving their day job because of the supposed stability and the benefits, like you said, especially health benefits. But like you said, and few people point this out, is that, well, how stable is it really when you're under the control of other people? Whereas when you run your own business, you're in control. So
no, for sure. And what I tell people is, look, if you're still kind of in that place where you kind of need that steady paycheck, but deep in your heart that you're an entrepreneur and that's what you want to do, create a runway for yourself. Figure out what is it that you want to do and create a side hustle. Plant some seeds. Get the brand out there. Get the website. Start blogging. Start putting content out. Create some momentum for yourself so that if and when you get fired or laid off, or you're just fed up, you're sliding into something that's already moving, right? That train has already left the station. You've already got some momentum going. It's not going to feel as monumental to like start from scratch. You've created something that you're kind of already being able to jump into. So that was something that we did with our brand too. Like I put it out there, and by the time I really made the light bulb went off, I was jumping into something that already had some momentum. So it made it a little bit easier to make that leap.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's where I'm at, and I think a lot of people, they start it on the side and build it up while they're still getting that paycheck, and then at a certain point, just take off with it. When does that book come out?
I'm about halfway through it, so I plan on publishing it this fall, and I think the timing is really just going to come down to, I kind of went into it with the idea that I was going to self-publish, but I have a little bit of interest maybe of getting picked up by a publisher. So I'm not doing it to make money. I don't care about selling books. I just care about, it's really just more of a lead gen tool, maybe open up doors to some speaking opportunities. I love helping people. That's my passion, is just really authentically helping people with their businesses or starting agencies. And if I can help others do it more efficiently and quickly than I did, that's what's fun for me. So the book's a passion project and just telling our story and how we were able to do that.
I'm looking forward to reading that. I guess it'll be on your website whenever it becomes available.
Absolutely.
Well, cool. Well, I appreciate your time today. And if people want to learn more, they can go to socialistics.com or even your personal website, jasonyormark.com. I'm also going to have show notes with links to everything at thesarahstjohn.com/Jason Yormark. And that's YORMARK.
Absolutely. And check out that. We have that awesome ad budget calculator on our Socialistics website. It's a free tool that'll really help businesses kind of get a little bit more sense around what to expect budget-wise in terms of their ad budget and or hiring an agency, whether that's us or anybody else.
I saw that on your website. I think I'm going to have to input some numbers in there and see what I come up with.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. I love it. It's a really cool tool that my director of paid put together. Just one of those free things that helps people be realistic about what to expect when it comes to these sorts of things.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time today.